Talking about some of the new terms, dating terms for 2022, untyping, when someone dates outside their type. I think that is very common, especially when you're young, to date outside of your type, or if you're just coming out of a divorce, you're not looking for anything serious. And maybe you had a type, but you really didn't enjoy the end of that relationship because it was a nasty divorce. You might end up untyping and dating completely outside of your normal type to experience something new. There's also something called, there's like 5 different doomed type of relationships that people get into. One of those is someone who is more than 10 years age different, or someone who is just from a very different background. They call it the exotic relationship. That usually happens because you're rebelling against something. So maybe you're rebelling against a bad marriage, or I did this when I was young in my early 20s because I grew up with a bunch of white boys. And so I wanted to only date Latinos and Black men because I was so sick of the white boys and I didn't have a good experience with them when I was in high school. So I went through a phase where I would not date a white boy to save my life. I was in rebellion mode. My fiance now is a white boy, but I went through that phase. So that was me doing the untyping thing, I think, because I was rebelling against a period of my life when I didn't have a good experience with people who maybe would have been my type. And I was really looking for something very exotic. So that can definitely happen when you're young, when you're experimenting, or when you're rebounding or coming back from a bad experience with your type. I think untyping is a positive. It brings in a lot more experience into your life. I recommend mega dating, which is dating multiple people at the same time to diffuse your energy and increase your confidence. Also helps you to really learn who you are, what you're looking for, and who makes you feel the best. And so in that process of mega dating, if you're untyping and dating against what you think is your desired type, you're getting a lot more experience and a lot more exposure to maybe different cultures, people with different political backgrounds, people with different religious backgrounds. It gives you a lot more information into what your type really is, because we may just think we have a type, but we've not explored outside of that. So I think it's a really, really important step in dating to untype while you date. I think it's a trend that should stay around. And I think you'll probably see that most in people who are rebelling against the norm. Another term, Caronisty, when someone is honest about their dating goals and intentions after COVID. Caronisty, I like this one. Yeah, I think everybody should be honest about their intentions. I don't know exactly how Corona brought that on, probably because you had to get really honest with people, like whether you were sleeping with anyone else or seeing anyone else because of the, health risks that were apparent when, Corona, there was no vaccines and stuff. So I think that one is something that I hope stays around, that people get really honest and upfront with their intentions, and they're able to manage expectations better because they're not presuming something about someone without communicating about it. So hopefully Caronisty stays around for a while. I think it's definitely a positive to be open and honest in your communications, especially when that could, not being honest could mess up expectations. Another term, new term, dating term, groundhoging, someone who dates the same person over and over again. I love this term, groundhoging. Okay, we all do this. I feel like a lot of us do this. A lot of us have a type. This would be the opposite of untyping. I think groundhogging is normal. Studies show that a lot of times we'll be attracted naturally to someone who reminds us of the opposite sex parent, because that was our very first experience with the opposite sex. And so a lot of times we naturally tend to gravitate towards people where we feel really familiar with them. And so we might groundhog and date the same person over and over. This can be fine if you're getting a fulfilling experience from dating that person. But, a lot of the Marina girls out in San Francisco will be dating the same tech douchebag over and over and over again, and it doesn't serve them. So you want to look at if that behavior is actually serving you, if that's somebody that you really want to groundhog with, or if that pattern that you're repeating. So some people repeat the pattern of always choosing alcoholic women, or always choosing somebody who uses them for their money. You want to examine these patterns, and really get clear on which ones are serving you and which ones are holding you back. And then you want to look at why you keep attracting that type of partner. If it's maybe you're always dating a person who's an alcoholic, where are you meeting them? Are you meeting them in a bar every single time? Maybe changing your location or the way that you meet people would help you to not groundhog as much. Zombieing, when someone who has ghosted you reappears. Ooh, I hate that. So the zombie comes back to life. They were not a ghost, they are back. This is an interesting term. I think that it is probably a negative. That person is not very respectful, certainly not a good communicator, and may have an avoidant attachment style, all of which is a bad sign. So if you see a zombie, get rid of it, get out of there. You don't want to be a part of that. Definitely think it's a negative. And it's probably because they have no one else that's responding to them. And so, they've burned so many bridges that they're just trying another bridge. I would avoid them. I would not go for that. And I would not want to be a zombie myself. Pocketing, when a new partner refuses to introduce you to their friends or family. You could also call this booty calling or friend with benefits, or it's like a booty call, pocketing. If they're not introducing you to their friends or family, chances are they're not looking at you as a potential long-term partner. And it would be nice if they were using their Caronisty to be a little more honest about how they're feeling, because obviously they don't want to have you meet anybody they know. That's a bad sign, something that I would not like if it was me, and I wouldn't recommend doing to other people. And if you're going to do it, just be like really upfront in your intention. Like, hey, I'm not seeing this going into a long-term relationship. Are you cool to be friends with benefits? That Caronisty is going to get you very far. Hater, H-E-Y-T-E-R, a hater. People who ignore matches that start a conversation with a hey. Yeah, those people are common. So starting a conversation with a hey is one of my biggest no-nos. I call them an H factor. You say, hey, hi, hello, how are you? Hola, how was your weekend? This is the worst way to introduce conversation with somebody you just met on a dating app. You can do anything else, literally. Don't start your conversation with the letter H. Don't use the hater language. Think about something that is going to be related to something on their profile and ask them a question. And ideally, that question is leading towards a date idea. Some of the classic terms: gaslighting, negging, benching, cuffing, ghosting. Gaslighting, I believe that is when I get this one confused with love bombing, but gaslighting, I think, is like when you're hot and cold with somebody and you give them a green light and you give them all the love and then you take it away. This one is not a good one. You see that a lot with narcissists. When you see it, you should probably run. Red flags all the way. Anytime something seems too good to be true and then it totally gets pulled away, yikes, run before you get or what do you call it? Like addicted. That can create an addiction, a love addiction, because you want the highs, but you have to go through the lows. And that's not a healthy, sustainable relationship at all. Do I think it's going to continue? Yes, because there's people out there that are not very emotionally aware, that are doing bad things. There's a lot of narcissists out there. Be really careful when you see this behavior, immediately cut it off and get out of there before you get wrapped up in the cycle. Negging, negging is when you basically disqualify a woman in order to make her like you. So you say something like, you would be a lot hotter if you were a brunette. So she then kind of feels bad about herself and then tries to work hard to win over your approval. I understand why this exists, but I think it's a crappy PUA term that is used by men who are trying to attract women who are insecure. A smart woman who knows her value is not going to respond to a neg. An insecure woman who doesn't know her value may respond to a neg, but then you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have a strong sense of identity or doesn't have a ton of confidence. So I think it's fine to challenge a woman, but when you basically tell her a lie about how she would be better if she had this color hair, or you basically say something mean to her to knock her down a few pegs, that's not a great way to start. Neither is complimenting. So I understand where the concept of negging comes from. I would prefer to challenge or tease somebody, but not to actually make them feel bad about themselves for whatever reason. So negging is like a really negative version of teasing and challenging, which teasing and challenging is great. And I think you should do that. But making somebody feel bad about themselves so that you can have leverage and an advantage, not what I would recommend. But I think it will continue because it's been around for years and years and years. Thanks to the PUA community. Benching. I'm assuming this is when you bench somebody that you're not super excited about, but you keep them there just in case. I think benching is probably a fine idea as long as everybody is on the same terms and everyone like kind of knows what's going on. So it's always good to have a rotation, in my opinion, so that you have, like, especially if you need a friends with benefits situation, I think that's healthy to have some people that you maybe bench for a while, and then you have an agreement, maybe a friends with benefit agreement. That can be a healthy way to just get that human connection that you need when you are single without getting too attached to somebody who maybe isn't right for you. So I think benching is fine. I just want everybody to be very clear and upfront in their intentions in the beginning, so no one gets hurt. Cuffing, I know of this term in like cuffing season, where people get together because it's cold and nobody wants to be alone, or on the holidays. Usually that season happens around Halloween and goes all the way to Valentine's Day. It's where you get into a relationship because you don't want to go to the Christmas party by yourself. You don't want to answer to grandma about why you're still single. I think this will always continue. People do not want to be alone when it's cold and dark outside. I can relate. I would agree. You also see a lot of people breaking up in the springtime because maybe they didn't really like that partner. They just didn't want to be alone. Probably not the healthiest move, but you do see a lot more people get into relationships during cuffing season. And I think it's just a great opportunity that when more people are receptive to dating and long-term relationships. So it can be a positive for sure. Ghosting, super negative thing. Ghosting is not super, no, there's nothing good about ghosting. Ghosting is super rude. It's a bad communication. It shows somebody does not have emotional maturity to communicate directly and clearly. And while women really hate to make people feel bad, it's not an excuse to avoid making somebody feel bad. What would be better is just to be direct and upfront in your intentions. So instead of ghosting, I would just do a better job of managing expectations and communicating clearly. Sometimes people ghost because they don't want somebody to get more upset or to elevate some kind of intensity. If you're trying not to elevate something, just say it nicely. You know, I'm not feeling the chemistry, unfortunately. I don't think this is the right fit for me. That's going to be a lot better than just ghosting someone. I think that's different than letting conversation fizzle out. So if you're not interested in seeing someone again, you don't necessarily need to just give them that unsolicited information, but you would want to like respond if they message you. So that's the difference between ghosting and just not reaching out again. I think not reaching out again is fine. You're letting it fizzle out naturally, but ghosting is when someone messages you and you fail to respond. I think ghosting is really juvenile, especially it depends on how far along the relationship is. If you've dated a couple times, it's really crappy to ghost somebody, or if you are like close friends or something. But if this is the first time that they've messaged you and their message is just really inappropriate or really basic, then I think it's okay. You know, if someone's like, hey, how are you? It's fine. But if you've been on some dates and then you're ghosting, that's rude. That's all I got for that. Hope that was helpful.